Hey there, YouTubers. I'm going to start with the funny stuff as pointers to interesting other videos, and then I'm going to dive into some Python. It's a philosophy channel here, but we use Python as kind of our resident logic language because philosophy tends to host a logic language or two, several. So daylight saving, a movie trailer. It's less making fun of daylight savings time, although that's a worthy thing to make fun of, than it's making fun of like Hollywood style action thriller soap opera kind of movies. It's one of my favorites. Pure Poppycock is another one of my favorites, and this is the video through which I first, by the Gregory brothers, first encountered Nigel Farage as a character. I had no idea who that guy was, and it took me a while to put two and two together. But okay, that's talking Brexit now. So I've talked politics. Trump's getting troops out of Syria. That's more politics. And now, moving forward, Spider and Python. So what's going on here is, if you're not familiar with Python, this is a little bit advanced, but we've got like a container class. It's just named container that has two capabilities. The first one is just to be born, to be created. As an instance of a container, I can give you a name as you're born, and you're going to have an attribute named true, or it's going to be named attribute, it's going to be true as a value, and so on. The fun part here is I'm returning a function. So here's a function that returns a function, because I want students who are reading this to remember that functions are just objects like anything else, and you can return them. And so I return the function that I define in the function, but what is the function that I return actually return? It returns the self, the current instance of the class that you're calling. So I've got this instance of class container, I call its factory method, and it returns the self of that instance. So here I am creating a thing, and I'm going to check where it is in memory, ID of a thing. And then I'm going to run that factory method inside of a thing to get the function it returns, and then I'm going to call that function, which means it is going to be this here self on line 17. It will be the self. So not surprising if it and a thing on line 20 here are the same object, two different names for it. And so that's something I check here. And if it doesn't say faulty logic, I've got it right. Now what's interesting is then I delete the class itself, and I delete a thing, the first instance I ever create from it. And the question is, am I going to be able to get back to where, even though I've deleted the most straightforward name of that class, can I still kind of create new instances of the container, even though I've deleted my name container from my namespace? It's like kind of dropped it maybe by mistake, I lost it, and now can I still create new container things? And so the answer is, we can see over here, I run the code, I get all my output, it's conforming to my expectations. I have this thing called it and new it both in the namespace by the time I've run this, and they're actually two different names for the same thing. And the question is, can I now create a new it, like a new instance of container with its own ID, different from these two? And here's how. You can just say, start with a type of it. Don't have to have a name for it. It takes me back to container anyway. And I can pass in a word like Python as its name and hit enter. And actually that creates a new instance of a different ID. So I can ask for the ID of it. It won't be the same every time. That's the point. It's creating new instances. I haven't yet started to name them. So there's one. There's one again. Notice these are different places in memory, different IDs. So let's name it OBJ for object, right? Equals this thing. Type of it or new it, whichever, they're the same. And voila, object now has a name and attribute, and it is a new instance. So the point here is Python keeps pointers to objects that are necessary for the program to keep running. And because I gave the name it to what a function returned, which was actually what it returned was self, I still have self around. And using type of self, I really still have container around too, even though I got rid of my definition. So I can like say type of obj and create something and right away call its factory and get the self back of that thing. obj2 equals, and actually that now what the factory returns is the function. Okay, so now what is the ID of obj2 if I call it? That's going to be the self of this new container that I have, which I have called what? I've called it obj2. No, I didn't give it a name. There it is being created right there. So whatever, that's where it lives in memory. I don't have a separate handle to it. Let me do this. Let me do type of object, call it, and call that obj2. Let's call that obj3. So that's a new instance. Now, if I go obj4 equals obj3 factory, and then call whatever it returns. Okay, so I'm calling it once and calling it again, calling what it returns is the ID of obj4 the same as the ID of obj3. And I expect the answer to be true. All right. So that's just kind of gymnastics. Feel free to jump through that in slow motion, and I'll do a Jupyter Notebook version of this sometime, and we can look at it on GitHub together. All right, students and others, remember the fun stuff. Talk to you later.